Hi everybody, welcome back to Braves Productions podcast. I'm here with our very special guest, David Nicholson-Fajardo, one of our collaborators and filmmakers. Look out for his new movie coming very soon. But we're here for another episode to talk about a specific movie and how we feel about it. So I'm going to let David introduce himself a little bit. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how you're connected to us.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, fell into this guy's orbit a few years back. We were both Angelinos, like trying to, make the dream happen. Have loved movies forever. Made it kind of my business, too.
Yeah. Man.
And in particular, I'm a sci-fi guy. I like the spectacle and all that. So yeah, the movie in question, Dune, falls into that purview.
That is why he's the perfect guest for this episode. Because we're talking about Dune Part 2, which just came out this weekend. So we wanted to get it up as soon as we could, so it's when it's still part of the conversation, and
absolutely
talk about how we felt about it and what we liked about it, and what just about the culture of movies in general now, and all those great things. So let's get into it. What did you think about Dune, or is that too broad a question? Do you have a specific?
Oh no, bro. Let's get broad because by and large, really liked it. There were like certain bits, mostly pertaining to sandworms, production design of the wacky planets that were really making me feel that kind of pure movie magic joy. Some bits are probably gonna stay lodged as like cherished, movie going memories for a while. I think there's a sequence of sandworm riding that is especially in Prime with the earth shaking sound was almost like I needed to like smoke a cigarette after. It was like just all
right, so let's talk about that first. So we wanted to see it in IMAX, but it was full. It was sold out every showing, and so I was like, well, they have Prime available, and Prime it's an immersive experience. So the chairs shake and like it's surround sound, but it's like in your ear, like everywhere. And the screen was massive. I thought it was
that's what's kind of wild is that this is like somehow not up to par with IMAX or whatever, but it's still AMC decides to make it Godzilla sized and really just overwhelm you sonically, visually. You can't escape the movie.
It's an experience, I guess. And I mean, so it's kind of was perfect to watch this movie in because our seats were like.
They were like legitimately vibrating. Not quite on the level of those 4DX things where it's essentially a theme park ride. Those are a little much for me. But this was just the perfect combination of that, or like balance where just the treble, or just the sound itself being used.
So
to
when
shake
you riding the sandworms or something like major happens, like a big ship comes in or something, it was just like and it was so like you were just in the movie. Which we're probably going to compare Dune 1 and 2. Obviously, I mean, it's not even a comparison because it is one story. Because this one,
for sure,
literally picks up like
30
minutes after the first.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed straight away was the color.
Yes.
The first one, most of it, even on Dune, is very like bright and bland all at the same time.
Yeah, he kind of almost like austere. Like
the sun was very hot and nothing like there was no life and everything like that. And then immediately in this one, it's just like vibrant and like just so much more. And like throughout the whole movie, it kind of stayed that way. And it's a great analogy for like. Okay, now we're in it, and so is Paul. Like he's part of them now, and now the world is changing for him. And but the color change was immediate.
Great point. Actually, I hadn't thought about that, but that does kind of contrast. Yeah, the first half is all him in his courtly like regal life, so it's all gray. Everyone's wearing halo suits. It's very austere, and then second half is when the sort of color and wackiness comes in. And full disclosure, like I'm a book reader. Yes. I've seen the previous versions, have kind of a lingering affection for all of them. The Lynch one, the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries, which I think people joke is like the greatest high school play ever filmed. Like very very like talky and like kind of goofy costumes, but there's some good stuff in it. The first part, though, I really liked it. Something I was missing a bit in it was there's a bit of a psychedelic angle to the book, And I thought that Denis Villeneuve kind of did the the which is excellent, and that's something he excels at, is the sort of Nolan very like gray concrete, more dour blockbuster. And I thought this one, he kind of let his like freak flag fly a little in parts, which I did appreciate.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I watched him in an interview, and he was saying that Denis Villeneuve, that the first one was like building a sandbox.
Yes.
And now the second one is playing inside of it.
Yes.
So he just had to let the audience know where we were, what's going on, who's who, what's the plan, what's the idea. So establish all the rules and the world building. Yep. And all right, let's get crazy.
And the conflict too, because the first one is all the slights that are done to, the Fremen and Paul, and then the second half you get to see why they would be so motivated to take such, as we see, very bloody revenge towards the end. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah, and it's interesting also that it is kind of like it's a long movie.
Yeah,
like it is part 1 and part 2. Mm-hmm. Like you're meant to kind of watch them together. Whereas Lord of the Rings, there's separate
stuff
stories. I understand, because this is one book. Obviously, it's both parts, but you're really meant to watch it all in one go. So then it makes it like a mini series.
It does, yeah.
Where it is like 6 hours of
it's like 5 and change. Yeah, if
so
you put them together back to back.
And which is also something I noticed recently, is like these the really big spectacle movies are starting to get longer and longer. Or like the more prestigious films are the ones that you have to take your time with, and like they're worth your 3 hours.
Yeah.
Especially in a world where everything's like 30 seconds. It's no, you're just going to sit and watch this, and it's going to be spellbinding. And it's like, I mean, it asks a lot, so it's like, it better be good. Yes. But I've noticed, like with Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, this one, nobody is like, oh, so long. It was like it was 3 hours, but the pace was so good, like you don't notice. And it's like, I think because Spielberg and Lucas talked about how movies are going to become more grand, like in the sense of like going to the theater,
for sure,
where it's like this once in a while event versus going every weekend like we do, which is starting to change because we are getting everything at home.
Yes,
it is going to be like the new
and
big
in fact,
thing.
Dune Part 1 was experienced by most people at home due to the pandemic situations, which was
that's right.
Kind of interesting there, that this one almost is the sieve being broken a little bit. Everybody like rushing back to be like, no, I liked what I saw on TV so much that I want to like see the culmination as big and loud and like full as possible. And I think that kind of gets into like with Flower Moon and Oppenheimer, how there's a little bit of a sort of kind of mistaken idea of what editing is, that it's like just getting it down to like what it needs to be, whereas a lot of it can be like, oh, from the jump I want this to be 3 hours, how can I make this the most watchable 3 hours possible? And I think that I'm sort of seeing people kind of get a handle on that as runtimes and like spectacle balloons, sort of being like, okay, these are the parameters that I have to like make it as enjoyable as I can within.
Well, do you think that's going to be the new trend then, is like in the next several years, it's like all the like is Marvel going to start making 3 hour movies that are like of great?
They've done a couple at least, Endgame and all that as the big event ones, but I'm not sure actually, because I know, for instance, like the Marvels, a lot of people were coming out saying like, I sort of appreciated that it was an hour 45. Maybe Marvel is going to be more of the quick you eat it to get the rush. But I do think I've talked about this before off mic, but Bollywood, like the attitude there has always been, if I'm paying X dollars, X amount of money for a ticket, it needs to justify that. So that's why their films are often 3 hours, filled with like musical numbers and explosions and like everything's very heightened. And I think I'm maybe starting to see that attitude kind of trickle into Hollywood, where there is this feeling of, if it's $18 a ticket plus concessions, I want it to, really justify that.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
I don't know.
That's so interesting.
There might be some shift there.
That's the business side, the commerce side of like getting your money's worth.
Yeah.
Because maybe that is why people get upset, because they're like, I paid to see this.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, maybe with like the monthly subscription based model, it's like everyone's just kind of seeing everything because they can, so it's like I'm actually getting my money, like more than my money's worth by seeing this terrible movie.
Yes, yeah. There's a little bit of like having to like maybe compensate or not like justify it, be like,
Yeah.
well, I guess it wasn't so bad considering like the amount of like
Right.
fighting I had to do to get to this and sit down. It's kind of rare among blockbusters these days where something costs, you know, excess of 100 million and really feels and looks like it. Not not just the effects and the spectacle and the location shooting, that's obviously all very impressive, but also that it feels casting wise that this was, hey, let's get every single prominent young up and coming star, ones from maybe a generation back, a couple from 2 generations back.
It's
it really,
like every big star,
almost every person a human might recognize at this point in 2024 is in it, which is
that's true.
Yeah, like,
so you think that's where a lot of the budget went then?
I would have to imagine, just because like this is a big part, which is a good place to spend on it because it makes it feel again as close to like a Hollywood of the past, I guess, where you would actually go like, wow, that Timothy Chalamet, that Zendaya, they're coming up. I wanna see a movie because they're in it.
Yeah.
People talk about like Vanilla Sky in 2001, which is such a strange, not very commercial movie, somehow made 100 million because Tom Cruise was in it, and people were at that time, I don't care what the movie even is, as long as Tom Cruise is in it, I'm interested enough to go see it.
Wow. Yeah. And which is interesting also because like the idea has been kind of talked about, like the idea of the movie star dying. Yeah. And maybe like the action star, but I feel like this kind of proves that there are movie stars out there that are going to be like more like the Leo or Brad Pitt that are like a leading person. That people are going to like, they're proving that in this movie.
I think so. And I think that in the last year or two, I think that whole thing about the movie star is dying has maybe gotten to high enough years that they're thinking we need to maybe we need to do maybe a little life support or something, because I feel like that Anyone But You movie, which is very much like a vehicle for 2 up and coming people. I feel like there's been maybe more of an attempt to sort of build these actors and have them, you know, like be in a bunch of actually like, you know, intriguing or exciting projects at all levels to sort of like create them. And with that in mind, I guess that could be a transition from the broad strokes to the more specifics. But first, like, what did you feel broadly about it? And then maybe we can like go by like character or performance, set piece.
As a movie, it was as a whole, I loved it. Like 1 and 2 together, I loved it. I think 2, it was really like let your freak flag fly. Not like maybe a little bit of a wave versus like but like so many of the visuals were so striking and like I think I had my mouth open for like half of it. Yeah, absolutely. I was just like, you know, like so it was really great, and the way he was able to make a book that said was unadaptable, so palatable, and it be intriguing and not like dumb it down for the audience, but still make it understandable. And I noticed there was a few voiceovers in this one, not many, but like especially with Rebecca
Ferguson.
She kind of became because she becomes the Reverend Mother. She has this voiceover, but it works for the character because she's become like all knowing or whatever. So it's like she's different now, so we can hear, like the audience can hear her versus like other people.
We open up to hearing her, which is funny.
But as the movie as a whole, fantastic. Like again, like it's going to be one of these like cultural.
For sure, it
was like I remember when that came out, like because people were talking about it like Star Wars. How it was like such a game changer, and I think like what you were saying was like when you see the $100 million on the screen and like there's like effort put in and then the audience considered and you know like all of that, very well told as well. But it does have that Nolan. Now that you say that, it does have that Nolan feel of like the sharpness and like the muted. Even though it was very colorful, like it just felt like a Nolan movie
for sure. And I think that's a little bit that's kind of been Denis Villeneuve's blockbuster career, which I think he's acknowledged. Like I think if you look at a list of his 50 favorite movies, like The Dark Knight's on there, so he definitely is like, oh, I like Nolan and I like the blockbusters he creates, and I want to have that as kind of a North Star when I'm doing my thing. And it is kind of, you brought up Lord of the Rings, and I think like it's a little comparable in that book was very, is also very nerdy and esoteric, and you bring in a guy who maybe is not like set box office on fire, but clearly has a vision and has been able to like work in increasing budgets, cares a lot about the book clearly, and is very committed to making it as big and like wide-reaching as it can.
Yeah.
And that's very commendable and cool.
Yeah, because there is that thing of being able to share it with the world in a way that they can really appreciate and understand. And yeah, it's like, I love this, and you can tell like in their hands, it's like, I love this story. I want to share it with as many people as possible to get them to understand how great this world is that this man has written and created for the world that maybe people will stay away from because it is very dense and nerdy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the book is dedicated at the beginning to all the ecologists of the world, so that like lets you know that this guy is like really working in this very weird, nerdy minutia.
Yeah.
But
the fact that they were able to do that without it being too dense but still feel all of it.
And we were talking about Star Wars. I love that thing where you create this intricate, dense world, and you trust the audience enough to just see it for a second, and that gets their imagination running, but isn't something you have to dwell on or like exposit about. I was a big fan of in the gladiatorial pit these weird jester dudes who are kind of like the rodeo clowns, like corralling in the fighters.
Yes,
and they're odd. You kind of in your head know what their role is, but we never get any long-term explanation. That stuff I love when it's something you can just a George Lucas will like build these ships to just have them go by for one shot or something like that.
But you understand what they're there for.
Yeah,
like having to spend 10 minutes.
That's like sci-fi catnip for me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
being PG-13 though was pretty intense.
I was shocked by that. Yeah.
When he gets the sword and he tests it on the people, I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, there's a lot of like casual and very brutal kills in it. It's kind of funny. I think 2049 is R, and honestly, I was kind of thinking what even the distinction is between the two in terms of their the brutality, their violence, because there's an equal amount of like extras getting casually murdered by bad people. And, there's some rough stuff in this one, which
pretty rough. But then with again going back to the colors and like how there's like funny moments and then there's like really intense moments, and it's like it is kind of like this acid trip, like psychedelic thing of just like whoa,
you're all you have highs and lows, and you're not totally on like stable footing in this world.
Exactly.
And then speaking of humor, if you want to talk about the performances, for whatever reason, my highlight was Javier Bardem. I think he really he nailed it. He was funny. He's really tragic. You buy this guy who kind of this character who is what he sees in Paul, kind of. He is this natural leader and knows all this stuff and has this like strong conviction. But even when he's being told by Paul, "I'm not this guy," he can't believe in it, or even himself without Paul. And I found that very, very, very moving. But if you want to like talk about some actor highlights, do you have a favorite?
Surprisingly, I really liked Austin Butler.
Yeah, he's up there.
He's up there.
Like, just
Javier Bardem, Zendaya was really great too.
Yeah, I was like really impressed by her.
And I like the world building of like even with them, there's still factions of they disagree on things. And how she's very much like he's just a guy.
There's a scene where two groups of them are yelling at each other, which is very like Jets and Sharks, because they're all like raising their arms and stepping up to each other, which is funny.
Yeah, they don't agree even though they're like on the same side. Which I think is important too for us to see as a community as well. You can be on the same team without be agreeing on everything.
Yeah, not make them
to be just you believe something different, so
And in good good storytelling way, it's not 100% either way. That's kind of what I like. What they do with Paul is that some of it is just straight revenge, some of it is this genuine desire to help the Fremen, and some of it is him being kind of corralled into this by like powers beyond his control.
Yeah,
and you're not entirely sure how much, or what is the dominant one, making him do this. And that makes for good, like, discussion after a film. And again, not to be mean to Marvel movies, but a lot of those are like
tight bow
friendship rules. Yeah. You're like, okay, cool. I got, Like,
even at the end of Civil War, it's like, if you need me, I'll be there.
Yeah,
it's like, well, then you didn't break
sometimes brothers fight. Like,
right,
that's kind of the, like...
Brothers fight. They're still brothers.
But it is good. It's nice that there's like some ambiguity and some like moral gray area, and you'd be like, oh, and then it's a very human thing too, because it's like you have to justify it or whatever. I was watching somebody say something. They were like, it's it's only wrong until you do it.
Yeah.
You know, like you have this opinion, it's like, oh, how dare they? That's so terrible. And then you're like, well,
that's that kind of blew my mind too just now, because that is totally Paul, because it is him knowing what this looks like and what a terrible thing it is until he has to, and then it is him coming up with excuses for himself in that way. Yeah.
And like using, it's like, okay, like it's at first like it's not me, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'll use this to my benefit. And
at the end, alienating Johnny there, Zendaya, finally, like,
which is
not knowing he's taken a step too far till it's
too late,
already happening.
But that's different from the book, right? Because in the book he tells her like beforehand.
Don't worry, I love only you, and she's like totally accepting of it, which is kind of interesting that there's like a kind of a bleakness or tragedy to it that isn't even as highlighted as it is in the book. Yeah, which is also, so as much of a crowd pleaser as it is, and what you were talking about with the violence content, I did appreciate that it also is pretty uncompromising at times, like very like willing to get kind of sad and disturbing, and leave you a little uneasy at the end. Which is something I give points for.
And something that again I feel like maybe because movies are meant to be an escape, people think that means, well, let's just make everyone happy all the time.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it's like, but I think it also could be an escape because you're able to sympathize with people. It's like, oh, I haven't had that emotion, or I haven't. You know, it's like, oh, I have had that emotion. I understand what they're going through. You know.
You can.
It makes it more personable and more of an escape even, because then they like, I don't know, it might remind them of things in their life. But
for sure, Like I have a floating uncle who's like pretty rough. He's always slapping me around and putting me in gladiatorial pits. Like it really.
I get you, Austin Butler.
I was understanding. Yeah, pretty hardcore in that bit. But absolutely, like I think there is a little bit of a, what I like in the best movies is you can have this little remove of, oh, I don't 100% live this world, but I know what these characters and situations, like I have similar, emotions, people in my life, and I think at its best, movies is a way you can kind of work through it through seeing an example that like is not a totally one-to-one mirror, but kind of maybe makes you feel or remember certain things.
And that even in a different world, in 10,000 years in the future, people are still people.
Yes,
and people have flaws, and people make mistakes and take advantage of people, and
that kind of cyclical.
We're like, would you? It's almost like a would you do anything different?
Yeah,
If you were in the same position,
yep.
What would you do? And this is like almost like the best case scenario that would happen. It was like there is a bit of like purity in there of him trying to help people.
Yes,
there is part of it.
Is there? Has there been a little bit of a step forward? And then the fact that like there is some moments of joy in it. Like I think the way we're talking about it, like I don't want to make it seem like it's just this like festival of cruelty, because there's a lot of like friendship and love and like comrade stuff that goes on throughout this movie. But I think like it doesn't also shy away from nothing. If you're never thinking about the consequences of your actions, that's like not a great place to be. And I think that he has to realize like, oh, nothing I do happens in a vacuum. Even if you're leading billions of people, a lot of them are not gonna end up in great places as a result of you, and that's something a little unsettling, but also you still get the blockbuster indulgence of like, oh cool, these nukes are going off, and him
writing a word,
cheering before thousands of people or whatever.
Well, that's the cool thing again, that he's able to put all of these themes into this blockbuster movie, but still make it palatable. There is a level of excellence that like I've just they've been giving it to people that aren't ready. These other movies are flopping because the people are behind them don't care.
Often on purpose. It's like, you made an indie movie with the Duplass brothers. Now you're gonna do Jurassic Park, and I can push you around because you haven't like been in this machine long enough to the Nolan model where he made bigger indie studio film with Insomnia, 3 moneymakers, comic booky stuff, and then across that now has this clout and expertise to like hit these like homers over and over.
It all kind of ties in to the idea of we should just keep working until like just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's
For sure.
It won't.
I mean,
like it's like the right time of things. Like, and I want to be ready.
Yep.
You know, like
and Villeneuve in particular is kind of interesting for that because his first movie is 98, so he's been at this for an incredibly long time considering. And like his first two are these like kind of quirky French Canadian indie films, and then he doesn't make a movie after 2000 for 9 years.
Wow.
And then the other two he makes, Polytechnique and Incendies. Also, I'm probably butchering the French language, so forgive me. Are these like really dark, austere like dramas, and one of the latter of the two, Incendies, gets an Oscar nom for foreign film. Wow. And from there, almost immediately, like his career supercharged because he jumps right into Hollywood, like parlays that into. And then does the Nolan thing of like mid-level thrillers like Prisoners, Sicario, and then now has just been on this like sci-fi extravaganza streak for like 4 movies running. And it is speaks to what you're saying, both like patience and you never quite know when it's gonna like suddenly click for you.
Right.
And also, that he, did his dues kind of at every step of it, like worked slightly bigger, made it work,
And then learned along the way, how to make a good movie.
And figured out what kind of filmmaker he wanted to be. Because, if you watch those first 2, you would never think, this guy's going to have 4 sci-fi things in a row. And then that's going to be his wheelhouse, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good place to end it, because I'm excited to see what he does next. He wants to do number 2. He wants to do Messiah, and then
I think he said he's out.
Then that's it. Yeah, he wants to do a trilogy. Yeah.
And I mean, if someone wants to pick up, I want the 4th book is one of the weirdest things ever written. So I think like maybe the director of Mandy could like pull that one off. Like just make the most alienating blockbuster ever made. That would be pretty cool. And I think he's also talking about Cleopatra with Zendaya. And Rendezvous with Rama, which is another like classic from the 70s sci-fi book. So he's not slowing down.
No, that's cool though. I'm so excited to see what he does next, because he is becoming one of the most I don't know if influential is the right word, but I mean I'm sure he's going to create a lot of people that want to pursue movies because of him.
Follow in his footsteps for sure.
Prominent, I guess. Filmmakers of our day, and he might be up there. If he's already doing movies like this, and he's. Who knows what's going to be next? But
keeps it going, yeah. Let's ride it.
Let's ride that wave. That sand dune.
Absolutely,
wave.
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit, talking about Dune 2. Let us know what you think, and we're going to keep making more stuff this year. Check out Azathoth, coming out soon. We're actually going to start submitting to festivals this week. And we will keep in touch with you guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Take care, everybody.